tell you a little bit about Discount Party Store Developers. Our parent company has been in business since 1993, and we have opened over. Good evening, welcome. We've opened over 4,600 stores in various retail categories, and one of which is the party stores. We've been developing party stores since 2005, and we've opened about 500 stores in that period of time. Very excited to be in this industry. We offer, and we are the largest, our parent company is the largest developer of independently owned retail stores in North America. And again, with over 4,600 stores developed since 1993. We provide a package of 7 key services designed to get you open quickly and efficiently. We offer financing assistance if you need it. Then once you've secured your funding, we have our in-house real estate department. We assign a site locator and a leasing manager to work directly with you, so provide you with site location assistance. And during that, we identify every available location in your area in the size that you've expressed an interest in. As we identify locations, you'll know everything there is to know about them, and we'll walk back through that process a little bit later. You'll have access to a proprietary website that we call Easy Track, and you'll be able to see everything there is to know about every location under consideration. The locations that you like as well, we have you visit them, give us your input, and then we negotiate on those locations for you. And we may negotiate on as many as 3 or 4 locations. So when we get to the final economics for all those locations, then you can sit back and we can help you make a good decision as to what might be the best location for you. Within our leasing department, once we've identified that location, as I say, we negotiate the lease, and we negotiate over 17 key provisions, all designed to protect you and put you in the best possible position with relation to your landlord. We look at just a few examples. Good evening, welcome. Just a few examples. We make sure that the restrooms in your store are ADA compliant. What that means is they're handicapped accessible. If you were to lease a space and found that the restrooms are not ADA compliant and you had to retrofit them, that can cost you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So we always want to make sure that the landlord's going to do that work and not you. So that's one provision that we look for. Another one is what's called a dark clause. And what a dark clause does is, say you go into a location where there's a Target or Walmart. Good evening, welcome, as the anchor tenant. And you're in there, you're doing a very nice business, and all of a sudden that anchor tenant, that major tenant, moves out. Well, now the shopping center isn't the same, doesn't have the same value to you that it did when you signed the lease. So with that dark clause, you have the ability to get out of the lease or stay there at a substantially reduced rent. There are a lot of different options that we negotiate. But again, we want to make sure that if the shopping center changes, that you're not tied to a center that's not as productive as it once was. A third, just one more example, that we negotiate is what's called a relocation clause, a no relocation clause. And what that means is if you're in a great spot, you're right next to the grocery store, for example, and then the landlord comes in, so I've got a new tenant, and they're going to pay me a little more rent, so I'm going to give them your space, and I'm going to move you down to the end of the shopping center. Well, without that no relocation clause, the landlord typically has the right to do that, but when we have that clause in the lease, you're protected from having that happen to you. And so those are just a few of the 17 or more key items we negotiate for you in the course of doing your lease. And again, all designed to protect you. Once you've made the decision on location, the lease is signed, then we provide the complete store setup. And in that, we provide all the store fixtures and equipment, the shelving, all the wall trims, interior signage, checkout counters, and all the cash handling equipment, of course, all the merchandise. We send a crew out to set up your store. They arrive typically on a Monday morning. Our build-out supervisor is there as well. We receive all the fixtures and start setting them up Monday morning. Usually Monday afternoon or Tuesday, the merchandise starts arriving. Again, our crew is there. They receive it. They start stocking the store. And in virtually all cases, you are ready to open that store on Saturday. It takes us about 7 days from start to finish. And that includes everything. There's even an allowance toward the cost of your outdoor sign in your store package. Of course, before we start that store setup, and after you signed your lease, we schedule you for training, and we have a trainer here in our office that coordinates your training with you. It's done both online and over the phone, uh, at your leisure, at your convenience, and on your timetable. And at completion of each online module, you can do a follow-up with your trainer, make sure you understand the material that you reviewed, ask any questions, of course, and the different suppliers for the categories of merchandise, and there are many. Um, as part of our package, you become a member of our supplier network. We have over 35 key suppliers, and they are the best in the party store industry. And because of the volume that we do with those suppliers through our stores, you get the heaviest discounts on product. You can save as much as 20 to 25%, sometimes more, uh, off of the list prices of a lot of these suppliers, the key ones certainly, just by being part of our network. So it's a very, very cost-effective part of the store package that you develop with us. And then, of course, once you're open, you receive unparalleled long-term support. We have a person here in our office that's dedicated to your store. They will stay in contact with you certainly for the first 90 to 120 days on a very regular basis. They help you write your replenishment orders, get you ready for every season and holiday, which is a very big part of the party store business. And of course, helping you with any operational issues. You'll continue to get product updates, supplier updates from us on a very regular basis, for the life of your business. So we never quite go away. And in a nutshell, you get all the advantages that you would get if you were to buy some type of franchise, and there really are no party store franchises, uh, but without paying any fees or royalties ever, which is a great part of our package, and it brings a lot of people to us. You get all the benefits again of a franchise, but you don't pay any fees, you don't pay any royalties, and you are the owner of your store. You can buy whatever merchandise you choose, take your store in whatever direction you choose, and we support you in doing those things. So that is that is kind of our program, our development program. We start at 1,000 square feet, and go up in size from there. And we have packages for virtually every size store. So we'll get back to that, and if you have questions, certainly we'll do a Q&A here in just a couple of minutes. I just want to talk for a minute or two about what's going on in our industry, and we're all coming out of 2020, which is a year I'm sure most of us would rather forget. Uh, Tough for retailers throughout. In some areas, party stores were not considered essential and did have to close, and a lot of our stores that were open converted to curbside pickup. They did a lot of phone orders, very creative. We added in a lot of our stores, we added the PPE equipment, masks, sanitizers, distancing signage, and things of that nature. Um, Everything that our owners can do to ride out the storm, and most of them, all of them did. You know, I was talking to a store owner the other day, and actually he is in South Carolina, and in North Carolina, I'm sorry. And he called us. He's been open about 2 years, and he wants to expand his store. So we're negotiating to allow him to take on the space next door to him, add another 12 or 1,500 square feet. So a lot of positives came out of what was really, all in all, a year we'd all rather forget, as I say. One very positive thing is that while a lot of businesses unfortunately struggled and some did not make it out the other side, that has created a lot of availability in very, very good locations in shopping centers throughout the country. And with that, landlords now are very motivated to get quality tenants back into those centers. So our store owners typically fit that bill in terms of being quality individuals, good business people. We develop a beautiful store for them. And there's not very much competition in the party store industry. So they create traffic for the shopping centers. They have great longevity. Uh, and landlords are motivated. They're making really nice deals right now. In some cases, better than I've ever seen. Lower rental rates, more free rent. They're investing more resources in making sure the spaces are move-in ready. So there's a lot of positives there. I read an article in Investors Business Daily about 3 weeks ago, and the Federal Reserve estimates that right now there's over $1 trillion in unspent uh, stimulus funds that consumers are just sitting on, and all the surveys indicate that those folks are ready to get out and start buying. Most states are either open or opening up now, with a few exceptions. Uh, so those folks want to get out, they want to do some shopping, and our stores are certainly one of the stops they're going to make. Another thing that surveys have shown is that because of what everybody went through last year, um, stay-at-home celebrations are going to be bigger than ever. Um, the surveys indicate that people are going to be much less likely to go to venues like Chuck E. Cheese. Well, unfortunately, Chuck E. Cheese I don't think is around anymore. But party venues like that, they want to avoid those crowds. They want to have more controlled celebrations, which opens the door for the increased sales in our stores. And what's interesting is when people shop a party store, they they don't just buy plates, cups, and napkins. They buy all the related products: streamers, confetti, the balloons, table covers, uh, the big heads. Uh, and most people, especially when they're doing a party for a younger person, they're theme parties. So if you want to have an Iron Man party or a Paw Patrol party, you're going to buy across all those uh, items within that array of product. So the average transaction in a party store industry wide is $25 to $28. Very, very strong as opposed to a lot of other retails. And the average margins of profit, approach 60% on the product in our stores. So all around, very attractive business, easy to operate, fun, and people are going to be out in droves and are now uh, gearing up for graduations and so on. There are over 36 events and holidays that people shop for in our stores, um, which means there's something going on virtually all the time. You know, between uh, Christmas, Valentine's Day, Halloween, Cinco de Mayo, which was yesterday, Mother's Day, which is this weekend, Independence Day, all the patriotic holidays, Memorial Day, Labor Day. It goes on and on. And last time I looked, people are having birthdays every day of the year. So no shortage of celebrations for people to shop for and for you to sell for. Um, One last thing, and then I'll kind of open it up. We've developed over the last year or so additional revenue generators that you can add to your store to further increase the sales and the attractiveness of your store, and of course the profits. One of those programs is a print program, and I just attended the training for it again last week. Um, there's equipment that you can buy to put in your store where you can. It's actually quite amazing. You can print banners on demand, indoor banners, outdoor banners. The customer actually stands at a kiosk, designs the banner, and then prints it out while they're there. The pricing is about 30 to 40% less than what they would pay at Signs USA or one of the typical sign type stores, and you don't have to wait 2 or 3 days to get it. Uh, they do it in full color. They do indoor, as I say. They do outdoor. You can put images on those banners. If you want a picture of your child for their 16th birthday, you can put pictures of them at birth, at 16, and so on. Print out "Happy Birthday, Bobby," uh, and you walk out with that banner under your arm. You also have the ability to print uh, gift wrap that is personalized with photos and so forth. And again, very inexpensive. And the best thing is if any of you have children in school and you've bought store photos or school's photos rather, those packages start at what, about $29 and go on up from there for a sheet of 3x5s, 5x7s, and an 8x10, and maybe one more sheet. You can print that same sheet and retail it for $19.99 in your store on that printing equipment, And that sheet costs you $1.96 to create. So it's literally a 10-time markup on that type of printing. The profit is just phenomenal, and a lot of stores are looking to add that now. Other items that you can fold into your business are bounce house rentals. We have a supplier for that. Uh, Party furniture rentals, tables and chairs and so on. Stores tend to partner with suppliers of cakes, different specialty bakeries, so they cross merchandise with those types of businesses. Uh, they partner with car dealerships to do their balloons for their sales on Saturday morning. The list goes on and on. But anyway, all that being said, what I like to do now is I appreciate your patience, and I tend to go on too long, so I apologize for that. Um, then I'd like to open it up to questions. So any questions that you have about the business, our programs, and so on, please feel free.
Hey, this is Mo. I guess I'll start it off. I have several different questions, and
Sure.
I'm sorry in advance if you may have answered one of them. So first question I have is, what is a typical investment of an owner from A to Z?
Okay, very good question. The 1,000 square foot package starts at $83.9, and they increase in price from there based on size. In addition to that, the only funds that you would need to bring to the table or have via funding would be uh, some monies for the first month's rent, and usually 1 or 2 months security deposit, utility deposits, uh, business licenses, things like that. I usually uh, suggest to clients that they have, in addition to their store package, about another $15,000 to $20,000. And that allows for all those items plus some working capital for the first weeks to kind of get your store going. Um, and what we do is once you come on board and you're in finance, if you need funding, of course, they work through that part of the process for us. And once you've secured the funding, if you like the terms and so forth and decide to go forward, before we ever move you into real estate, we do a fairly comprehensive worksheet where we'll list out the package price of the store that you're buying, of course, but then we estimate all those other expense items that you will want to have funds available for, knowing that we're going to overestimate them, A, and B, you may not need all of them, and in some cases, any of them. For example, I was estimated several $1,000s for minor tenant improvements that you might have to do, maybe paint or do the flooring. The reason I do that is sometimes in the course of a lease negotiation, uh, the space that we're looking at may need flooring and or paint. And most cases, we get the landlord to do that work for us. But sometimes the landlord, they tend to be lazy by nature. Uh, they may come back and say, you know what, I don't want to do that, but if your tenant does that, I'll reimburse him for for the funds that he spends. So you'd need to have that money to come out of pocket, and then the landlord would reimburse you. Or he may say, if your tenant will do that flooring and that paint, I'll give him an extra 2 months of free rent. So it's always good to have those funds available, because in the course of the negotiation, it may be to your benefit to have those monies available. But to answer your question, I apologize for going on so long. An additional 15 to 20,000 over the price of the package is more than enough to have on hand.
Gotcha. And what is the typical net income after expenses that you've seen?
Okay, varies a little bit, obviously, based on the rent factors and where you are, but I'd say comfortably 20% net. Can be a little bit more.
Okay.
So I think the average cost of goods is about 40 to 45% of retail, which is pretty strong. Um, and then other than your rent, the staffing is minimal in these stores, so you don't need a lot of people on the floor. Virtually all the merchandise is on the counter all the time. You reorder in very small quantities as you need product. Um, so there's not need for much of a stock room, and when your orders come in, they virtually all go right out on the counter.
Gotcha. Is this a scalable business where if I decided, hey, you know what, this is something I want to expand across multiple cities and even states, is that possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's certainly no restrictions on our side. So, it just comes down to finding those locations, targeting the cities or areas that you want to get into, and we'll help you find those spaces.
Gotcha. I got a couple more, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
Can you market any way we see fit, or do you guys do the marketing on our behalf? How does marketing work?
That is typically a function of the store owner because the environments vary so much. It's very hard. But in our training, we provide you with all the materials necessary, and we walk through a lot of other things as well, like social media marketing, how to set up your grand opening. We provide you with ad templates, flyer templates, and so on. So we get as much detail as we can for you.
Yeah, I did say the net profit is about 20% of sales, right? What is the typical
after all expenses?
After all, right. And so, what is the typical gross monthly sales of a 1,000 square foot store?
And again, it's going to vary a little bit by market. A lot of variables, obviously, the population, who competitors are, where they are, and so on. As a general comment, I would say you should look to do sales in the range of 180 to 220 a square foot annually. And what we do as part of our process is when you get to that place where you've identified location and we've negotiated to the final terms of that lease, so we know what the rent is. We can put a pretty good point on what the expenses are going to be, and of course the revenue. Then normally I can sit down and I'll do a worksheet for you, which is kind of a thumbnail 1 year and 5 year P&L. Knowing we have to make some assumptions, and it's certainly not a guarantee, but it can be a pretty good guidepost of what that location can generate for you. And I always do that before you sign the lease.
Gotcha. And so to clarify, 180 to 220 annual, that's not monthly. So 20% of that. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, 180 to 220 per foot annualized.
Per foot annually?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Is there a franchise fee?
No, we're not a franchise. No fees, no royalties ever. The only monies you'll ever pay to our company is the one-time cost of the package that you select to develop.
Now, I have a question.
Just go ahead, sir.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Do your last question.
And we'll come back to you, Mo.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I want to say, now in your package, I read that you guys would help with, in other words, where you could have operating capital, so you can have, some extra, because I heard you say you want to have some rent, put to the side and stuff like that. But say, for instance, if you have, my situation, I have a 730 credit score, but I get unemployment. I get unemployment now, and my income, is unemployment, but my credit score is higher. And
Understood.
I had a business before, but, I read that you guys would give enough to have that nest egg, because I had a dollar store before in Texas, and that's where I ran into where I didn't have operating capital. I purchased an existing store, and when I took over the store, I purchased it with all the merchandise, but I had to come right in paying rent. And the rent was $4,000 a month for that space. So I didn't have no nest egg to make anything. You know what I'm saying? I came
I understand. Rent. So let me answer the best way I can.
I didn't have those two or three months.
Sure.
To stack up. You know what I mean?
I understand. And here's how we address that. When we estimate what the funds are that you're going to need before we even get to work in real estate, we make allowance. We make sure that you have a sufficient amount of working capital to carry you through the first month or two, certainly. And then on top of that, because we won't start working real estate unless we know you have that, because of that very reason that you described. We don't want to have somebody open and then struggle. So we want to make sure that they're in a position where they have that extra funding that they need. And keep in mind that when we negotiate the lease, we're going to negotiate for 2, 3, 4 months of free rent. So, for
Okay,
the
great.
first period of time you're open, yeah, you're not obligated to pay any rent. You can start doing business. You have your working capital that you've already put to the side, and now you can generate some extra monies. You rebuy the merchandise that you're selling, of
Mhm.
course, but you're not the big expense that you have is rent, and you don't have that right
Right.
now. So that's that. Does that answer your
Okay.
question?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Next question.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Sherelle in Florida.
Cheryl, go ahead.
I just wanted a little clarity on the $2,000 was like a bonus or something after you buy the store. I wasn't sure what that meant. Was
Okay,
it
yeah,
after you buy the store?
yeah, thanks for reminding me. I meant to say that at the outset, but of course I talked too much. Uh, no, what we
No
did there,
worries.
it's a little bit of incentive. If if you've attended the teleseminar, which you are, and you decide to put your deposit in place and application by next Wednesday, then when you do open your store, you'll get $2,000 in additional merchandise in your store package.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of
Understand
a thank you for taking the time, and it's very easy to get started if you do decide to investigate this in a little bit more depth. You know, really all you need to do is complete the application with your sales representative and put in place a $500 deposit, which is fully refundable at any time. Um, if you can't get financing, that deposit goes back to you. If we can't find a location that you like, deposit goes back to you. If we get to lease and you don't like the terms of the lease, deposit goes back to you and we stop. And if you do a store, that deposit becomes part of the purchase price of your store, so you never lose it.
Oh, that's great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question. Mohammed, did you have another question?
Um, can we sell our own items, or is that possible?
Yes, yeah, there's since we're not a franchise, again, there are no restrictions on what you can sell. Um, the only qualifier, and I know that you're going to buy your basic product from the suppliers that we have in our network because they're the highest value suppliers. But no, if you have local product you want to sell, a lot of people, for example, will make their own piñatas. Um, they'll add lines of local candy. Yeah, there's no limitations at all on what you can sell. The only thing that we have to be careful about is when we negotiate your lease. We want to make sure that anything that you're thinking about doing in your store that's outside of the norm, we want to make sure that we negotiate that into the use clause for you. So if you decided, say that, I kind of like that printing idea. I don't want to do it when I first open, but I want to have the ability to add that in a couple of months. We'll want to make sure that we put that in the use clause for you so that a print shop can't come in somewhere in the center and then you have to compete with them. So other than that, no restrictions at all.
Awesome, thanks.
Great. Any other questions?
Hi, this is Latoya. I have a few questions as well.
Yes, go ahead.
Are there, I think some folks ask about like the percentage of net profit. But can you kind of clarify or can you state like how long it normally takes you, an owner, to get a return on investment, being that there's a cost for the store based on the square footage? Um, so so if you get So if you're purchasing like 1,000 square foot, there's the 83.9 fee that's due to you guys. Is that fee expected to be paid in full, or is that fee financed?
Yeah. Hold on, just 1 second, Latoya. Excuse me, somebody, could you mute your phone? There's some background noise, some conversation. It's very hard for everyone to hear. So if you could please mute your phone unless you have a question. Okay, Latoya, I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
So the 83.9, that would be financed. You would get a loan. You would get the funds from the lender. You would pay us that portion you'd pay us the store package price, and the rest of the funds would be yours to retain. Um, Typically, in an accounting scenario, you'd retire the cost of that store on an accounting basis over usually 5 or 7 years, something like that. Um, but I think your question is more, or when do I start making money? Is that
Right, right. So the financing piece is financed with an outside lender, not necessarily financed with your
that?
company.
And that is, yeah, that is correct. We're not the lender.
Okay, that's the part I was missing.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
And yeah,
that's the part I
I
was missing.
kind of thought that's where you were going. So,
Right, I
um,
was missing that. Okay,
and the loan
okay.
programs, they vary. The terms vary depending on what you select, what you qualify. They can be 6,
Mhm.
7, 8 years, sometimes longer.
Mhm.
And the interest rates too
Got it.
vary based on what your credit profile looks like. But what we do
Right.
is, if you want financing when you do come in, that's the first thing we do. We contact uh, lenders that we've worked with in the past, and we'll get a response usually within 48 hours for you as to uh, what loans you qualify for, how much, and what the terms are. So you'll know, as I say, within 48 hours, 72 at the outside, what you qualify for, and then you make the decision as to whether or not you like those and you want to go forward, or you may say, you know what, that's not for me. I'm going to wait a little while, and then we just return your deposit to you.
Okay. And then thank you for answering that. My two more questions.
Yes.
So based on, the 2020, and we're still kind of in this COVID kind of pandemic type thing. Are there any clauses in the leases that you've seen relatable to between the landlord and the store owner regarding, kind of if the store does not do well, unfortunately, kind of like, getting out of it or anything like that? Have you seen, um, has that been something that's been added maybe to legal documentations or anything that the owners have to sign?
Yeah, we go at that a couple of different ways, and actually, we did that even before 2020. Um, each negotiation is unique, but we seek to negotiate protections like that. For example, um, if you don't achieve, this is one clause I try to get in all the time. If you don't achieve a certain level of sales by year 2, then you would have the right to step out of the lease, with 3 months notice or something like that. Um, and as I mentioned earlier, certainly if the shopping center changes in that, a major uh, tenant within the center goes out, you have protections that we negotiate in that regard too. So, and you're not sitting there with an empty Target store next to you. You have the ability to get out of your lease. Um, as far as items strictly related to COVID, I know in most states and hopefully we never experience that again. I'm sitting here with both hands, fingers crossed.
Okay.
Uh, but in most states, they they had a moratorium on the rental payments, um, so that stores didn't have to pay rent until such time as they could open up and do business again. And then every state, every landlord handled a little bit differently, but in most cases that I'm aware of, what the landlords did was they just added time onto the back of the lease. Like, say, for example,
Right.
there was 6 months where you couldn't pay rent because you couldn't be in business, you couldn't open. They just added 6 months to the back of the term of your lease, so you just stayed 6 months longer and paid rent. So, most landlords were realistic. I mean, there's always a few that are tougher nuts to crack, but in most cases, the states kind of dictated what they could and could not do with
I
regards
do.
to their
Right.
tenants, which is how it should have been. So, that
Right.
kind of answer the question?
Okay. That does. And then my last question is it advisable to have like an attorney on hand for the owners, or is that something that you guys assist with? Just like if there's any legal issues down the road, whether it's with real estate, whether it's with, personal injuries, that kind of thing. I'm sure there's an insurance piece that the owners have to have for protection for, people coming in and out of the store. is that something you kind of put the owners in contact with any of your connections, or is that something the owners have to do on their own?
As far as an attorney, I don't think it wouldn't be appropriate for us to recommend an attorney to you. Only because it might look like I want you to use this attorney because he's gonna do what I tell him to do. So, so I would
Conflict of
never,
interest.
yeah, I would never want to do that. Exactly. So, I will tell you that when it comes to the leases, we review them very, very thoroughly here, and uh, our leasing managers, and we have 3 senior leasing managers, and they each do somewhere between 70 and 100 leases a year each. Um, and they've been here for years. I've been here 20 years, and I think our shortest term leasing manager has been here 7 or 8 years. So um, they're very good at what they do. And you always have the option before you sign the lease to take it to an attorney and have them review it. I'm never going to dissuade you from that.
Right.
And then the purchase agreement, which is the agreement that you would sign with our company to actually develop your store, and you don't sign that until you've signed your lease anyway. That's like a 7-page document. We make it as simple. It's in layman's language. I can even understand it, so I know that everybody else can. But you always have the option to take those documents to an attorney. Generally, it's not necessary, but if it gives you peace of mind, you should do that. And the other comment you made is a true comment. You do have to have liability insurance to protect yourself. And in most leases, in all leases, the landlord will spell out what type of coverage you need to have for liability and so on. So, and then you just shop it locally. Most often, whoever handles your personal insurance can either write that commercial insurance policy or can recommend someone to you.
To do it right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions? Well, okay. Thank you. Thank you all for attending. I hope you got some benefit from this. If you have questions, feel free to call your sales representative. One last reminder, if you do decide to take the next step and you do that application and deposit before next Wednesday, you would be qualified for that $2,000 in additional merchandise when you open your store. So, again, I thank everyone for their time this evening. I know everybody's busy, and it's late for some of us, and I appreciate your time and coming in, and look forward to have the opportunity to work with some of you. Thank you all very much. You have a great evening.
Thank you so much. You too. Thank you.
Take care now. Have a good night. Bye-bye.